Welcome to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I'm Nicole Eaton, author of the books Rock Your Soul and Rock Your Comeback, as well as an intuitive therapist, and I'm here to remind you of your power. This podcast focuses on mindset and inviting the universe in to create a life that feels so good, so aligned, and so authentic. I hope you're ready. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Comeback podcast. Today I have a really special guest, but I also have a really special announcement. For anyone who's been listening, you know I've been working on my latest book for what seems like ever. Like, you guys probably thought I was joking about a book at this point because it seemed like eternity. But the good and exciting news is that Rock Your Comeback, the down-to-earth guide to reclaiming your power, officially comes out August 22nd. But if you're hearing this right now, I'm giving you all a chance to be the first to pre-order my book, meaning it'll still ship on August 22nd, but you're going to be the first to have access to it. You'll get it right on the 22nd. And I'm giving you a $5 off coupon code. So this code is literally not available to anyone else at any other spot in this universe. It's like we're a secret club, but if you've been a loyal listener, this is my thank you to you for being so patient with me as I go through this process, for always tuning in. So if you type in RYC pod, that's RYCPOD, at the link in the bio, you're going to get $5 off your book. And that goes for all the bulk orders too. So there's special options and opportunities with the bulk orders. And if you are already in my comeback club and you're an annual member, you get it for free. So that's another option. We're having the time of our lives over in the Comeback Club, honestly. I know I said I wouldn't, but I'm popping in for weekly lives. And last week we talked all about setting boundaries, how to set boundaries. We talked about how to get comfortable being alone. And we have a major, awesome masterclass coming up this Friday on how to manifest your physical body in a healthy way. So again, if you join as an annual member to the Comeback Club, you'll get a free autographed copy of my book delivered to you. And you can type in RYC pod at checkout for the pre-sale and the pre-order of my book, and we'll get you $5 off. And I'm just so fucking excited to get this book in your hands and to share it with you. So on to today's episode. Today's guest was so fun to chat with. I got to sit down with Brad Walsh. He's the creator of the Empowerography podcast, where he gives women a platform to share their voices and stories. And this episode's all about hearing your inner calling, hearing that little tap on the door that is calling you for more in your life, and the fear around answering it and how to get around that. So I think you guys are going to love it. As always, let me know what you think. And if you want a sneak peek of my book cover, make sure to venture over to my Instagram on NicoleEaton.xo. Again, there's a link in the bio. Yeah, I hope you guys love it. I've been working so hard. I love and appreciate you all. Well, welcome, Brad. I'm so excited to have you today.
I am so excited and honored to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to be here and for having me on your platform and in your space. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
It's super awesome to connect like-minded people, and especially you specifically, who are giving women space to feel empowered, to share their voice. And I just love what you're doing. But for people who have never met you, I'd love for you to give your quick introduction of yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Brad Walsh. I am the host of the Empowerography podcast, a platform podcast created to elevate women, amplify the voices of women through sharing their stories with the world, with the hopes and helping, reaching, and inspiring as many women as we possibly can together as a community. And it's just been an amazing journey. I have met some of the most incredible women, you included, Nicole. You're going to be on my podcast. It's coming up very soon. So it's an incredible, just amazing. It's an incredible journey to be able to meet like-minded souls, as you said off the top, and to be able to connect with them and learn about who they are and what they do and share their stories with the world to inspire others. I mean, that's what we're all here for, is to help and support, uplift, cheerlead each other and inspire each other.
Yes. So, one thing that I always notice is that a lot of people end up in a career path or doing what they're doing, so empowering women or creating space. And I always feel like getting to where you're going involves some level of comeback. So I would love if you wouldn't mind sharing your comeback story.
how does a man end up in a space where you're creating room for women's voices? I'm so curious.
Well, my story, I guess you could say, would start with photography. Photography was my first love, my first passion. I learned how to shoot on black and white film in high school and developing images in the darkroom and a far distance from the digital world that we live in today. So that's where my journey started. And I worked in corporate for 12 and a half years as an audiovisual tech. And 3 or 4 years into my journey in my corporate career, I was tasked with the responsibility of doing corporate headshots. And I fell in love with photographing people. About 3 or 4 years following that, I was introduced through a mutual friend to a boudoir photographer who was based in Florida. And that just set the trajectory for me to start my path of working with women. I fell in love with this woman's work and the message and the mission behind that genre of photography with what you can help women accomplish in terms of body acceptance, self-love, self-confidence, all of those beautiful things. And I ended up mentoring with her for 6 months. And when I was done my mentorship, it was that light bulb moment. I just knew that that's where I've got to take my business when I make the jump to photography full time. So during that time, before I made the jump, I just practiced and honed my skills, my lighting skills, my posing skills as a photographer. I was doing free shoots for friends, things like that to practice my skills. And once I made the jump, it was just, this is it. This is why I'm here. This is what I'm meant to do. And it's just been an amazing journey of doing this work. And it just kind of fed into or led into the whole podcast thing. It was just a natural progression. It was so in sync with what I was already doing. And now, if I'm being honest, I haven't even picked up my camera in over 2 years. It's been all the focus of working on growing and building the community and growing the podcast to what it is today. My daughters are a big inspiration and part of the reasoning behind starting the podcast. Both my girls, I have 2 girls, they're 22 and 24 now, and they were both bullied as kids in elementary school. And so seeing what they went through and helping guide them through that process, I mean, it was a tough journey seeing the girls go through that and seeing the effects it had on them carry through with them to the different stages of their lives, from elementary school to high school to now their young adult lives. The effects still see them. And it breaks my heart, yes, because they're my girls, but also when I take a step back and look at it through a wider lens, the fact that there are so many other young girls and women who are out there that go through and deal with that on a daily basis and have it affect how they view themselves. They don't believe in themselves. They don't have confidence. They don't love themselves. They don't love their bodies. And I think that's heartbreaking. And so it's just kind of a progress. It just had to evolve into what it is today. And I mean, the platform is absolutely incredible. I've met some of the most incredible women I've ever met in my life. And every woman's story is just full of inspiration for me. I love that I get to spend the time with each woman and hear her story. And every woman's story, every person's story is so different, but the inspiration is just incredible. It's just an amazing journey.
I love, one of my favorite things about listening to people's stories, just speaking on that, is that a lot of times we can go back and trace where people are now from that initial moment, that initial, like, I started off just liking photography. Now I host a podcast, which is thousands of people. I've hosted thousands of women. I've had their stories. And I think it's really cool because one thing that happens is I think a lot of times people get into something and they feel that they have to stay there.
Yeah.
And they feel like I'm a photographer and I shoot buildings and that's just what I do. And I'm really good at it. And what would you say gave you permission to play around with like the idea of, you know, starting a podcast? Because I think a lot of people would get to that point and be like, who the hell am I to be doing a podcast? I was a photographer. Like, I'm curious what that rhetoric was for you.
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with that exact thing. It's like, when I first started, or before I even started, it's like, who am I to start? Like, who's going to want to listen to me? What do I have to say? What's this going to be about? This was before I even had the idea for it. But, you know, I think that I was at a point where with the photography, it felt like there wasn't enough of an impact. I wasn't reaching enough people, because with this particular genre of photography that I was involved in and shooting, the impact is very individualized. It's just my client and I who feel the effects of it. And sure, the woman who is my client, yes, the people around her feel the ripple effect of how she feels, but it just started to feel like there's not enough of an impact. And I wanted to reach more people. So I thought, why don't I take what I'm doing with the photography and turn that into, or transplant that into a podcast where I focus the podcast solely on women. And now, at the time, and even now, I don't know of any men who host a platform that solely focuses on and highlights women and elevates them and amplifies their voices through sharing their stories. So I thought this is a great thing because I can carve out my own little niche in podcasting, because you need to do something that's going to make yours stand out. It's just like any business, right? You've got to do something different. It's going to make your business stand out. It's going to attract your clients, attract your people. But also, I thought about my corporate career and the fact that, I saw how women get treated in the corporate world in terms of not getting equal pay for doing the same job as their male counterparts, and not enough women in C-suite level positions, not enough women at the boardroom table. I mean, I was in those boardrooms when those meetings were going on because I worked with all levels from assistant up to CEO as support. So I saw what the boardroom table looked like. And I can tell you, there weren't very many women sitting around that table, maybe 2 or 3 that were sitting around that table. And so I also thought that if I start this could be a catalyst. This could be something, or a spoke in the wheel for change around that mindset, to help shift the mindset by providing this platform for women to share their stories and get it out there so that they hear the stories of these amazing women who are doing incredible things around the world. And so that was really it. And that's how it all got started. And of course, we have COVID to include in that as well, because
Right.
I had a false start. I only recorded 7 or 8 episodes when I first started. And then my photography business was picking up traction. I was getting more inquiries and more bookings. So I shelved the podcast and focused on the business. And then when COVID hit, I thought, you know what, I don't want anything to do with all the negativity that's going on in the world. And there was a lot of complaining and bitching about it. And I just thought, I'm going to flip the narrative and take advantage of the time, this gift of time that we've all been given, and put something positive out in the world, because that's what we need. And so that's how it was really born.
I love that story. And I think one of the words you used was gift of time, or phrases. And I think that is something true for me about, obviously we'll honor all the hardships that COVID created and caused,
Yes.
but there was also this beautiful slowdown that happened for many people. And some people really fought with that of how do I slow down? What happens when I slow down? What happens to me when I slow down? And some people, I feel like it did force a lot of people to get more clear. It did force a lot of dropping away of old paradigms or old ways of doing things. Or I don't know, there was something really interesting that happened for a lot of people during that time.
Yeah.
But you know what else I'm hearing when you're saying that is you answered the call. And the call was to find a way to be of service for what you were personally experiencing in these transformational moments with people. And I think it's important for people to hear that, because again, we can get in our way with fear to the point where we don't answer the call.
Yeah,
And
it's crippling.
I'm curious what helped you dive fully into that. If you could give people 3 tips, if you have just something on your heart, something, going on in your life that you're feeling called towards, what are 3 ways that people can begin to trust themselves enough to lean in?
I think the first thing would be don't put it off. Don't wait for the perfect time, because there never will be a perfect time. Honestly, that I hear so many people say, oh, I'll wait till this, or I'll wait till that happens, or there's no, it's like children. There's no perfect time to have kids. You just do it. It just happens, right? So I think you just have to lean in and do it. I think surrounding yourself with like-minded people and a support system is also very key. Those 2. And then third, just do it. Just do it. Just jump in and do it. I mean, really, you'll figure it out. I mean, I didn't know anything about podcasting. Yes, I had an audiovisual background, so I had an idea. I knew how to use the equipment and set it up and everything. But as far as interviewing people and creating questions and all of that I had to figure that out as I went. I had no clue how to do any of it. But if you keep saying, oh, I'll wait till this time, or I'll wait till I know how to do this, or just jump in and you'll figure it out. It'll all work out. Just, you got to trust in yourself. So that would be the third thing, is trust in yourself and believe in yourself.
I think those are incredible tips, because I know for me, I have a mental health background, but what I don't have is a graphic design background. What I don't have is an audiovisual background. And so I think that anything you're feeling called to do or try is figure outable. And I think knowing that you're capable of figuring things out is one of the most important things to actually working towards or achieving your goals, or just that inner calling, because you are capable of finding ways to do it. And if you would have asked me like a decade ago, Nicole, do you know how to build websites? Or I would have not been able to tell you the first thing about it. And, now I've got all these like automations and integrations that I'm doing with this new online membership that I'm doing. And it's like wild to me how much you can learn if you care enough to learn, if you're willing to be called enough to learn. But it's like, again, that follow through and just diving in, even if you're not sure what to do next.
I think though, when you do find that thing, your calling or whatever, however you want to call it, whatever terms you want to use, I mean, it makes it easier because that's why you're here. So you will figure it out. You will put the time in and you will do the work. When you find something that you love and that this is why you're here, you'll do it. And I honestly think that we are all sent here with a gift or gifts, and that calling, whenever you feel called to do something, that's your gift. You need to share it with the world. It's your duty. It's your responsibility to share it with the world. You are not to be denying the world of your gifts. If the gifts aren't for you, they're for everyone else. It's not about you. So when you're called, it's your duty to answer that call and jump in and figure it out, because the universe has your back. It will guide you. You will figure it out.
Brad, that's such a truth bomb. I say that to clients all the time too, of like, who are you to deny what you're giving? And a lot of people feel like they need to be, so well versed in something before they start sharing what's on their heart. And one of the most important, do you remember what podcast? I couldn't even tell you who said this, but I was listening to a podcast when I was first starting, and somebody said this line, and I'll never forget it. And I use it to this day for people. You do not need to be Jimi Hendrix to teach the guitar. You just need to know 3 chords more than the person who knows none. And so this is a little bit of a full circle moment for me, because that just phrase and that like mindset is why I do what I do today. And it's how I got here, because I was able to get out of my own way by just trusting the process and diving in. So I think these are huge tips, especially for people who are interested in a shift, who are feeling the call. Now, I'm curious for you, like you talk with people all day, on your podcast. What was it like when you started being interviewed on podcasts? Because it is a more vulnerable experience, right? I'm curious how that's opened you up or changed you.
Yeah, that whole stepping into or stepping out from behind the shadows or stepping out of the shadows, it was difficult. It's because it's like, again, the imposter syndrome, like, who the hell am I to step out in front of or step around to the other side of the mic? Like, what do I have to say? What value do I have to add? I'm just the guy that sits on the other side of the mic and shares the stories. I'm just holding space for these women. So for me to step out, and I still struggle with it. It's still tough at times. We're human beings, and we're constantly evolving and we're constantly growing. So sure, you may have overcome certain things in your life and gotten through things and come out the other side, but that doesn't mean they still don't come up. So it still comes up for me, but you have to do it. Again, it goes back to what we're saying about when you feel your calling. This is part of my calling. So I have to do it. I have to force myself. I have to push myself outside of my comfort zone, because this is so much bigger than me. And people will benefit from it. And that's the other thing. You have to trust in yourself and believe that you do have value, because everybody has a value to add. And again, don't deny the world of your gifts. It's not about you. So you got to put your ego aside and do what has to be done. So that's every time before I get, like, even here with you, Nicole, I was still like nervous a little bit. And it's like, oh man, but I have to do it. I have to push myself to do it, because it's not about me. It's about sharing our stories, and everybody has a story to share. So I would say, just keep pushing yourself.
There's nothing more beautiful, in my opinion, than just like sitting and witnessing people. And it's always such a blessing to be on someone's journey with them and to hear the things that were hard, and because it is such a human experience. And I think with social media, and it's gotten a little better, and I've said this before on my podcast, but there's a lot of comparison. There's a lot of just not raw moments that need to be vocalized and shared, that I did this, but did I have a shit ton of doubt while I was doing it? Do I still have a ton of doubt when I show up to something like this? And I think it's really important to hear and to normalize, because I don't want people to use any of those feelings as a reason to not follow through with what they're passionate about or what they feel called to do. So I think that I'm really happy you're here, because you're vocalizing things that people need to hear and to know to further themselves in their lives. I'm also wondering, So you're doing this work in your professional life. How has it impacted your personal life or changed relationships? I'm curious.
Honestly, I mean, I have to say, so it was 3 years in April since the podcast launched. And I have to say that the relationships and the friendships are hands down the best part of all of this. This has been 3 of the best years of my life. I have met some of the most incredible women ever. And the friendships that have been forged and created, that's the best part. So it's been phenomenal. The trajectory is just up. It's only gone up. It's been amazing. I have learned so much about me. I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I've grown as a person. So the relationships, I mean, that's the best part. And my relationship with me getting more comfortable with stepping in, because as an entrepreneur, you have to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the relationships, the ones that have come as a result of the podcast, but my relationship with myself, how much I've grown is absolutely amazing. It's been incredible growth. We're still growing, always, 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 because we're always evolving, and those relationships keep growing and keep strengthening. So that, for me, the relationships are the best part of it.
I love that you mentioned that the relationship with you has grown, because I think that is, people look at personal growth and development as like, oh, I've got to sit down and I read this book, and I've got to sit down and I've got to do this course. And some of the most substantial growth that happens is when we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations and do it anyway, even though we're like on the inside panicking. Yeah. And I don't think enough people get a chance to like put themselves in the uncomfortable to feel what that feels like. And it does make you trust yourself deeper, and it does make you grow as a person. And for me, like, that always puts me back into alignment when I do the shit I really don't want to do, that I know I need to do. I always feel like, oh yay, like,
Yeah.
like you get a little special.
I think that brings up an interesting point too, the fact that we don't take the time, I think, to slow down, as you mentioned in COVID, but with this in particular, where we've pushed ourselves and we've accomplished things, like you said, give yourself a pat on the back. We don't take the time to slow down and celebrate those wins. We're so busy as human beings. This hustle culture bullshit, it drives me insane. I think it's complete garbage, but we need to recognize that we have to take the time to slow down and celebrate those wins. We have to celebrate ourselves, celebrate what we've accomplished, no matter how small, no matter how big. We don't do that. We're so busy checking everything off the to-do list. Okay, I got this, I got this, I got this. Now it's on to the next thing. Okay, what next, what next, what next? No, take the time to slow down, because also, again, it goes back to being in service. So I believe that when we do take the time to slow down and celebrate our wins, it's the permission slip for others to slow down and celebrate, because they say, hey, look, Nicole accomplished this. I see her celebrating this, and the people around here are celebrating her. What if I stood up and celebrated my wins and announced my wins? How powerful is that? It's not about you. Yes, you're celebrating what you've accomplished, but you're also giving back to others by doing that. It's incredibly powerful. The ripple effect is beautiful.
The modeling is so important. And it's true even about our kids and what kind of parents we are. I meet so many women who feel like they have to self-sacrifice all the time and burn themselves out. And I always say, would you want your kids to be doing this? Like, exactly. Would you be happy if your kids were just so burnt out to the point that they're looking for a one-way ticket somewhere? At the end of the day, we get to show not just our clients, but the people in our life, how to take care of ourselves, how to celebrate ourselves. And just a note on hustle culture, if anybody has interest in human design, there are at least 3 out of 5 designs that are not built for hustle culture. They're just not. I am not a generator by nature, but I'll tell you, if I give myself permission to rest, and then when I'm ready, I can go quicker than anybody. So it's also about knowing yourself, knowing how you work, and not trying to fit yourself into the mold of how other people are doing things and letting it be wrong or right. And I think that's such an important piece to coming back in, again, knowing yourself, getting to know yourself, learning about yourself. But this is a great conversation. I think this is going to benefit so many people.
That's the key, right? I think that absolutely everything in our lives starts with self. We are the foundation for all of it. So when you do the work and you get to know yourself, again, the ripple effect, it just benefits everyone around you. So you have to put in the work, you have to do the work, and you have to realize that it all starts here within us, and then it ripples out.
Now, you mentioned the universe earlier, which I love because I don't hear as many men talking openly about the universe. And I'm curious how that came about for you. Have you been somebody who's always leaned back into the universe? Is that new? What does that look like, that relationship for you?
That's fairly new. My grandmother passed in May of 2020. And she's a huge part of why I'm doing this work as well. Her and my mother are the foundation for all of it. But her and I were incredibly close. We had a bond that's indescribable. And when she passed, I felt lost. And she passed during COVID, so I didn't even get to say goodbye to her. I didn't get to see her. And so I was searching for some kind of signs from her because we had that special connection. And, it started probably last summer. Yeah, I would say last summer, asking for a sign. And I wanted to hear from her so badly, and it wasn't coming. Within a few months after she passed, I was asking for a sign because I wanted to hear from her. I wanted her to know how much I love her, and I wasn't getting anything. Nothing was coming through. And then all of a sudden last summer, I guess, I started getting the signs from her. And when I sat back and I thought about it after the signs started coming, and they were coming regularly, I thought, I know why she wasn't communicating with me before now, because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to receive it. And she knew that, and she had to wait. So it all started with her. And now it's like this, I get signs from her all the time. I got signs from her. I go out walking every morning, and when I'm out for my walks, I talk to her and I talk to my dad all the time. And I was asking for a sign yesterday about something I was looking for help with. And her signs for me are feathers. I get feathers from her. And yesterday on my walk, an hour long, I got 12 feathers from her. So she was screaming at me to tell me, you need to go forward with this and believe in yourself and trust in yourself. So it's all as a result of her. So yeah, it is fairly new. I would say it's been just over a year.
I love that. I think it's those moments where we are willing to play with the in-between, where we're willing to be open. And I think that's one of my favorite phrases, is willing to be open. And, I think a lot of times when people start asking for signs, they want it to be or look a certain way.
Yes.
And I think that's the big problem with people who are like, oh, I don't know if I believe in anything because I asked for this specific sign and it didn't show up. And the reality is your openness has to be just that. It has to be open. And it has to be almost unattached and undemanding in certain ways. But yeah, when we learn to lean, we've talked a lot about leaning in. Like this is like, the probably third time we've, like when you can lean into the universe of just letting it show you rather than you dictating how it has to show up, I think there's some massive magic to be found. And when we really start to, I think signs actually come to in those moments where we're like, is that a sign? It's not even that it's like, that's a sign. It's just like a noticing of like, that's really peculiar that's there. And I keep catching 2:22 on the clock. Or those moments where we're like, huh, that's weird. Like it's less of a, oh my God, and more of a like this keeps happening.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
It feels a specific way on the inside too.
I remember one of the I think it was probably the very first sign I ever got from her. I was cleaning out my garage. I was doing something in the garage, and I wasn't asking for a sign, nothing. And this was the first time. And I was in my garage, and all of a sudden this bird flew into the garage, right to the back of the garage and right back out again. Wait a minute, did that just fucking happen? Was that? And then it clicked. It's like, wait a minute, that's my Nana. I know that. And then after that, I started seeing a lot more birds around at like late at night. I remember I was out walking one of my dogs probably a few nights later. I was walking down, I live in a townhouse complex. And I was walking down one of the streets, and about 50 feet away, I saw a white bird standing on someone's driveway. It was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I thought, what the fuck is a bird doing at 11 pure
standing
white?
There?
Yeah, it's like, I know that's her. So I think that, like you said, you can't put expectations on it. It will come when you're least expected, but don't expect a certain type of sign every time. And you have to trust that if you start to question yourself when you see those signs, no, you have to trust that that is the sign meant for you. Like this morning, I was out for a walk, and again, I was talking to my grandmother, and I asked her for a sign about something else this morning, and I usually expect feathers. This morning when I was on my walk, my phone started ringing not even 2 minutes after I asked for the sign. So you have to be open. That, as you said, I think that's the biggest part, is you have to be open to receiving and don't have expectations. Don't have any attachments to the outcome, because it could be anything.
I love this conversation, and I just love that we're able to talk about empowerment in a lot of different ways, because to me, like, feeling supported by the universe makes me feel empowered. It makes me remember that I'm not doing this alone, that the call is there, that I'm answering something bigger than myself, that, I love including all these facets. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because it includes that mind, body, spirit piece. And I love that you're also feeling called towards that in your world and in the ways that it's created some magic in your life. And so this is just a reminder that you can ask for help, and you can ask for signs, and you can lean into who you're becoming, and you can lean into your vulnerabilities, and you can push through the areas that are hard or where you feel like an imposter. I'm curious if you had, like, I don't know, like 2 tips for people, just having worked with women for so long, having held those vulnerable spaces. If somebody was to say, Brad, what are 2 ways I can step back into my power? What do you suggest?
First thing is trust and believe in yourself. You have to. Again, it goes back to doing the inner work and believing in yourself and because we are our own worst enemies. We are our harshest critics. So you've got to put in the work and do that work. I was stuck in a competition mindset when I first jumped into entrepreneurship with my photography. And it took me 2 years, almost 2 years, to get through that and get past it. And again, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come up from time to time again, but that it's okay, first of all, but also how to turn the volume down a lot quicker on that noise, right? So I think that's the first one, is trusting and believing in yourself and doing the work. Second thing, I would say, surround yourself with the right people. That is, in my opinion, community and collaboration are key, not just entrepreneurship, but in life. We are not here or meant to do any of this alone. And you can't. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. You can't do it alone. So those are the 2 most important things I would say. Trust in yourself and surround yourself with the right people. Lean into your community, lean into your support system, because you won't be able to do it without them.
I want to amplify how important that last message is too. I moved to South Carolina about 4.5 years ago. And I, prior to that, was working with a bunch of women in an office doing Clarity, my baby, my business, spiritual health and wellness. And, moving here, I was like, oh, I'm going to still hold sessions. I'm going to do my podcast. And in February, I went to this business retreat type thing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm missing people. It was just like this huge aha moment for me of like, why is nothing felt like it was clicking right? And I just realized, like, I'm not surrounding myself with enough people who get me, think like me, talk about the universe the way I talk about the universe, talk about business the way I talk about business. And it was so refreshing and just so soul altering. So if you are somebody who is feeling like, I don't know what I'm missing, this might be a great reminder for you to connect with like-minded friends, to find a group, to go do yoga or meditation somewhere, to join. I know you've got a Facebook group that's got a ton of women in it.
Yep.
Just joining different opportunities to connect with people who are in your space, who are open and vulnerable, who, have meetup opportunities. Like, those things are so underrated. And I hope you find your tribe, because it is a huge difference maker between doing and not doing, and trusting and not trusting, and even believing in yourself. It helps to surround yourself with people who are like, go get it, you're awesome.
Yeah,
I'm listening to everything you do, so this is awesome. Thank you so much for jumping on today. I want people to be able to connect with you, follow you, reach out to you. How can they do that?
Well, they can check out my podcast at www.empowerographypodcast.com, or of course, any of the podcasting channels, my Facebook group, and the Empowerography Podcast Lounge, and Instagram, Empowerography Podcast.
Awesome. And you can follow me, Nicole Eaton, at NicoleEaton.com and NicoleEaton.xo on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks again.
Oh, Nicole, thank you so much. It was amazing.
Make sure to keep an eye out for my latest book, Rock Your Comeback, The Down-to-Earth Guide to Reclaiming Your Power, out this summer. I'd love to connect with you. Make sure to follow me on Instagram or TikTok at NicoleEaton.xo. Thanks for listening to the Rock Your Comeback podcast. I hope you're feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on the world. Now go step back into your power. The world's been waiting for you. But first, if you could, leave me a review or share with a friend. Thank you.